Garrett and Ken, thank you guys for taking some time with me this morning. We're from the famous Front Street Curtain Call Theater, which I know I've been to a number of performances on. We've gotten to perform on along with you, Ken. So we want to talk today a little bit about the connection between improv, community theater, and community building. So first, Ken, maybe can you talk, you're a Curtain Call board member, experienced stage actor, an improviser, and an improviser teacher. You were also previously a guest on the podcast where we got to sit down with Susan Helwich here and talk about the theater. And so maybe give a little background mainly on your improv training that you did.
My improv training. I started training as an old man when I was 35 in the city. I went to I.O. and then I trained also at the Chicago Improv Den, which I don't believe exists anymore, and then the CIC Theater. So all in probably about 2.5, 3 years of actual classroom study. And then, but all the while, once I finished at I.O., I was performing as well with my team DeLorean. We've been a team now for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then a little on your theater background too.
Well, I did theater in high school. Stopped doing it after I went to college for film and video, which I do make my day job is still that. So that's good. Money well spent. But it was my daughter, when we moved to Frankfurt, she wanted to do a summer program, and we found the one here at Curtain Call, and she did it. And at one point, I think it was the second year that she was doing it, she came running into the house to tell me that they were doing the adult show. The main stage show was going to be Little Shop of Horrors, which is my favorite musical of all time. I mean, I really only have one musical that I like a lot, and it's that one. And she was like, they're doing it. And I was like, wow, that's great. And she was like, yeah, you should try out. And I was like, oh, honey, I haven't done theater in 18 years. These are people that do it. She just looked at me. I think she was 11. And she's like, so you're not even going to try?
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, damn. Okay. Well, sure. Yeah. And I worked so hard to prepare for that audition, and I got it. I auditioned for the dentist role, if you're familiar with the show, and they then asked me if I would be interested in playing Mr. Mushnick. And now the movie. The movie Mr. Mushnick is not featured as much in it, and so I was like, sure, I'll play Mr. Mushnick. But then when I had seen the play as well, I was like, oh damn, it's a bigger part in the play than it is in the movie. So I did that, got to be eaten by the plant, which is still a dream come true. I just went and saw it at Central, and got to go back and stick my head in the plant's mouth. So anyway, I did that, and then it was just a snowball after that. I kept wanting to do it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. Great. And Garrett, also a professionally trained improvisationer. Improv how to say that word real quick. And you run Main Stage Improv group, training improvisers and putting shows on around the area. So talk a little bit first about your improv training.
Yes, thanks, Israel. So I started at Second City, and similar to Ken, it was a 2 to 3 year window frame of doing a lot of classes, along with doing shows. So I did Second City, I did Laugh Out Loud, and I did comedy sports for musical improv. And I cannot sing a lick, so even you can do musical improv.
Dreams come true.
But while I was at Second City, if there was opportunities to do shows, whether they were competition shows like the Pillow Fight, while you were students, I would take those opportunities and then organize my classes, because once you were doing a show, they allowed you to reserve a room to practice for free. And so after a 3-hour class, I would then go and practice with my teammates for a show for another hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on a Sunday. So it got pretty intense pretty quick. And a lot of that experiences, all those experiences build, and I was in a lot of groups. I had a group that came out of my Second City people called 100% Gluten. I worked with Ken in Fourth Wall Improv in Tinley Park, No Limit Laughs in Orland Park, and once in a while would guest on some other improvisers' squads. But the reason Main Stage came about is I wanted to work with people I wanted to work with when I wanted to work with them. As Ken knows, like when you're in a cast, you do what the director says, you follow instructions, you be a good teammate. And so I've worked with a lot of good people, and I just wanted to augment that by combining forces, so to speak. And that's where that grew out of. And
how many years have you been doing improv, Garrett?
I like about Ken, like 9 to 10. So yeah, you know,
Nice.
it's
Same level.
right.
Same level.
So you guys are in that seasoned professional range now.
We're like purple belts, probably.
All right. And in 2022, Curtain Call hosted your first improv night here in the theater. And it was, you know, it's about 3 years ago, and now you're 13 shows in. And these have become really popular, right? You're filling the house on the last couple and getting big crowds out.
I'm thankful for it.
It was one of those early nights, I think 2 or 3, that I met Garrett, you know, from one of these improv nights. And that led to me in January of 24 taking his improv class. And I walked into that class scared to death. You know, when I came to the first one here, I did not even think about or get anywhere near the stage. But we had a blast. And so I took Garrett's class, and it was a great experience. And it was about a year later, and I'm sitting at a Toastmasters meeting in New Lenox. Another thing, Garrett, you know, was an influence of his, and my wife was there, and I thought, you know, it's been a year since that class, and my network, the number of people, all these people are people I never knew a year ago. All, you know, made new friends, gotten to know people new, and it just really blew my mind how one step, you know, coming to that night here, you know, meeting Garrett and then taking that step to take the classes really grew and expanded my network. And so it made me think about the idea overall of how this community theater, as well as improv overall, plays into building community. So with that, you know, I couldn't think of 2 better people to have that conversation with. So Ken, I'd like to ask you maybe how first did Curtain Call start doing these improv nights?
Once I did a couple shows here at Curtain Call, I had offered, I wasn't on the board or anything, but I talked to Suzanne, who's the executive director, and I was just like, hey, do you ever do improv workshops? And they had in the past done them, but primarily for children, like little kids. Marta Kuntz, who is a board member here, she's a teacher, she would run them. And I was like, well, what if we did some for like teens? I wasn't thinking about adults. I was like, I feel like,
why is that? Like, why would you go to kids first?
Because I feel like kids are more willing to, you know, they're in school, so they're in drama, and a lot of times they'll do theater games, which are very similar, as we know, to improv games. So I think that they were just this was my own assumption, that they would be more open to it. And so I offered that, and they were on board. We had, you know, registered kids, and then March of 2020 happened. And so that got canceled because of COVID, and then the theater shut down for like a year and a half. But once we came back, we renewed that idea, and I was going to do a workshop for kids, and then they asked me to be a board member. So then I gave them my 3-point plan. And one of them was to gauge the community's interest, the adults, in improv. I think it's terrifying, myself included, when someone's like, would you want to take a workshop? Because then you're like, oh, I'm paying for this workshop. I'm going to be involved. Like, and I don't necessarily want that. So I was like, what is a way you can get people to come and see it and be like, look, it's not terrifying. You don't have to do anything if you don't want. Or you can try it in a safe space, and then you would find out what the community looks like. And so that's where Improv Night came from. It's basically I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like we would describe it as a jam,
Right.
But we know what that means. It was basically just come on out. You can watch improv. We have people who have done it before will be here. but then also, you know, you can get up and try things, sort of to demystify improv for people. And the first one, we had an overwhelming response to it, and so that kind of answered my question, that the community was interested in it. And I was shocked. I was, knowing how afraid I was of it, to have so many people, you know, and also improv wasn't at the time very prevalent in the suburbs. Like there were a couple like groups that were doing it.
Yeah, I think after COVID, a lot of stuff decentralized out of Chicago and into the burbs.
Oh, really?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a great point because a lot of the sort of mainstay theaters had to close their doors.
Right, or change ownership, or both, right?
Yep.
And I will say, in terms of community, as Ken mentioned, like not only Curtain Call Theater, but in Tinley Park, in Orland Park, in Lockport, in Homewood, there's different improvisers that run different organizations where there are opportunities for the general public to come out if they want to dip their toe in the improv waters.
And it's funny because I didn't think people really. I'm not taking credit for this, but like it seemed like people weren't aware of those things.
Agreed.
And now,
sure.
because of the community that's being built in all of those places, it's like the circles are getting bigger and they're starting to cross one another, and got like a Venn diagram of people. So the community is getting larger and people are aware of these things. So people who go to Limestone or in Homewood, like they will, it's like, oh, we went there, we could go see this. We'll go see Main Stage. And so there's like greater interest, even if there's not greater involvement, there's a greater interest in improv, which is
And there seems to be a great crossover too between the theater and the improv portion. At least here, you have a lot of people, like Brian did improv, got brought into improv, and then ends up being one of the stars of the Christmas production here.
That was awesome.
And Madison and so many of these people that cross over, and yourself, which is a really interesting. You're not tied to one form.
I'll add to that. So Ken and I were working on a show in Tinley Park with Fourth Wall years back, and he mentioned he got cast in the Lend Me a Tenor, and he downplayed Ken, a humble guy, very talented. He downplayed his involvement. Oh, I'm always running on the stage. It's like a Three's Company type thing. He was the star of the show. He almost was on stage most of the time. It was a great production here at Curtain Call, but I came for Ken, and I've come back for the rest of the shows because of the great cast and great productions they have consistently here at Curtain Call Theater. So in terms of improv, funneling some fans to the theater, it's made my mother-in-law, my mom, my wife, and a lot of my friends come to Curtain Call for theater because Ken was in a play and he told his improv pals about it. So
well, and that's too when I don't want to say I sold it to the to the board, but one of the ways I expressed it to them was that the improv aspect. I love improv, but to me it was about outreach to the community. It is a community theater. The theater holds 70 people, so it's relatively small. But and we weren't having a problem selling out shows. But I was thinking about not only audience, but I was thinking about performers. And it was just like, how many people live in Mokena have said to you, they've said it to me, they're like, I had no idea this was here.
Absolutely,
it's been here 9 years in this spot, and people don't know about it. So I'm like, we need to reach out to people. And by doing the improv nights, it gives people, another reason to come to the theater. And that helps because then they're like, oh, we can go there for this. What else are they doing? Oh, I could audition? I mean, we've had people who've come to the improv nights who have been, like Brian, but also Kevin Hughes. I met him through the improv nights. He is an improviser through and through. And I asked him to be in our show All in the Timing, and he said, I've never memorized anything in my life. Never. And I was like, oh, do you think you can? And he's like, well, probably. We'll see. I'm like, great. That's a great, but he killed it.
yeah.
He killed it. He came in, but I think he was like, I'm going to go for it. And that's, just as it's very scary for someone who's never done improv to do improv, it's very scary for someone who does improv to come in and do scripted stuff in that world.
Sure.
And he went at it and was fantastic in it. So,
Garrett, how do you think that improv and community building are connected?
Well, I'm going to go granular. I'm going to go how I met you, Israel, like you mentioned to your wife. I came here for an improv jam. Actually, a family member was going to go undergo a big operation. I really needed something to keep my spirits up and keep it off my mind. And so I came here with my friend Mark, who grew up in Mokena, and he had got up on stage, and he said, let's go to Little Al's down the road here, right, on Front Street. And so we went to Little Al's, and that's where I met you and some of your friends, and we sat down, had some drink, and right there, the fact that we came here, and then the after event, I got to make a connection with you. We became Facebook friends. I checked out your podcast, and I don't know what the time frame was, but maybe 5 months later, you signed up for one of my courses. And I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And Israel is a very talented performer too.
Yes, he is.
And I've had experienced improvisers that are on my team give Israel kudos to his face and also to me behind his back. He's really good. And so, but Israel, you'll be the first to say that improv night where we first met, you never went up on stage.
You talk about, I looked at that invitation like, okay, I'm not required to go up on stage, right? I was making sure. We had a great time. Yeah, I did not want to go on stage.
And I think you put your friend Mike's name up there and it got drawn and he didn't come down either. But I think it seems daunting at first until you try it. When I teach courses, I always give an analogy for the first 4 weeks. Like the first week is dipping the toe in the water, then dipping your ankle, then your knee, and then by the fourth week, you're up into the water, up to your waist. And the reason being, once you're in the water, you can then have fun and play really more interesting games, so to speak. And people have a blast doing it. There's something freeing about it. And Ken's not wrong. He mentioned about the youth and that as a target because kids in theater, whether they're teenagers or preteens, they exercise that muscle of imagination like all the time.
Yeah.
And when we get to, as Ken said, you come into like Second City or IO and you're in your 30s or something, you think you're an old dog because there's all these 20-year-olds or 23-year-olds in your classes. And the longer you are from being that preteen, it does seem like you're not working out that imagination muscle. But you can, just like going to a gym, if you don't exercise the muscles, it turns to fat. So too can your imagination muscles and so on and so forth. So I think people have extreme joy in rediscovering their imagination. And then there's the powerful force called shared laughter that I think binds people.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that with our classes. Like, we had the first two I took with Garrett, and even here, those are all very informative, but the best part, I always walked away like just laughing. We had so many good memory. Like, everybody's cracking up. Like, you can't not have a good time.
Tears in our eyes.
So what is it about improv that kind of breaks those walls easier than other things?
I think he said it when he said the imagination muscle. I always think about, and I've said this before, like kids on a playground. You have a bunch of kids on a playground and someone's like, I want to be Batman. And then another one's like, well, I want to be Luke Skywalker. Now an adult would say, you can't do that, right? Like that's DC and the Star Wars universe, they don't combine. But two children would be like, okay, cool. And they just go for it. And then they have a great time. And they don't think about the fact that like, well, this doesn't work logically, but it's great. And little by little, people rediscover that. And it's playfulness. And that is what, playfulness will save your life. It will save your life.
And that's the essence of improv is yes-anding. So like Ken said, you don't say, no, we can't be in the same universe. You just go with it. And that collaboration takes you in directions like that you would never get to by yourself. So there's something thrilling about being on a journey where you don't know where it ends. But like, if you get caught in a bit where you're like, oh my God, there's a game within a game and you're just enjoying it and the crowd's enjoying it, it's like, it's a great high.
It is. And the more you do that, to your point, the more you yes and people even on stage, like by saying yes to them, it seems simple, but you boost their confidence. It's like paying them a compliment to yes and their idea, and then they do the same for you. And you start to develop this relationship that's non-existent or it's off the stage from what you're doing on stage, and that builds camaraderie between you, and that's what I love, and that's why I think it carries off stage so well. Like you think about in a scripted play, people are together for 2 months, they're working very closely together, and by the end of it, like they're all best friends, and they all like, you know, hugs and tears and love, and they're like, well, maybe someday we'll get together and do this again, but you're never going to have that thing again. Whereas I don't know what it is about improv. You never have the same thing happen to you again, right. But you have the same people and the same sort of feeling between you that can exist not just with the same group of people.
Right.
That's sort of the magic of it.
Yeah.
It can exist with anybody who's willing to play. If you're willing to play, you'll feel that.
What a broad description of community of improv. Like, wow, you know, I kind of thought, well, it's kind of the people you work with, but it becomes anybody who's willing to play becomes the improv community.
And I will build on that in terms of some of my classes. One of my classes, their name is Unexpected Company, but they call themselves Unexpected Family. And so we celebrated birthdays, even divorces, and we get together often. And there is something with the shared laughter, and Ken's right, just working together, and it's never the same thing. In addition, though, I do try to build in a culture where it's affirming. So I will have, what's the highlight of your week? So we learn about each other in the beginning of classes. At the end, I like to circle up and ask the teammates to tell each other what they liked. One thing that they liked, what they did in class. And it's not idle chit-chat, it is actually critical to building a culture that instills that family aspect. And I've had friends see some of the graduation shows and say, wow, they seem like really good friends up there.
That affirmation you do at the end of your classes was at the beginning one of the most uncomfortable things we went through, but the value that that brought to me was really, really big. Like it, and you're good about that, is going out of your way to compliment or tell people, wow, that was really good. But you instilled that in us, so that's something you think beyond just the idea of improv. These other things are getting injected into us. But Garrett, you're very involved in Tinley Park and in intergovernmental things there. So talk about how the idea of yes-anding and what you learn in improv can be used in that.
Well, what I like about improv techniques is they can be used anywhere. You don't have to be on an improv stage. So the yes-anding, the staying fully present, and answering in real time, right? Responding in real time. But how many times do you see people distracted on their phones? And I'm not immune to that. I'm guilty as charged. But like in a setting, like say I'm the chair of the Plan Commission at Tinley Park, and I have my phone shut off during these meetings. I'm giving the people that come up to speak my full attention, and I keep an open mind, right? Improv, I'm not going to bulldoze some idea down somebody's throat. I keep an open mind. So if you can make a salient point or persuade me on something that it has been brought to the attention to myself and the board, and I'll listen to the board members. I don't come in with preconceived notions. And that's where I think the secret sauce of that flexibility from improv is I come to shows and I don't go, I'm going to do this. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a suggestion from the audience that's not of my choosing, and my teammates are going to play it a different way, and I kind of have to roll with the punches, be fully present in real time, and support my teammates as well. So I think the key there, though, is collaboration, right? And even at the Plan Commission, the community are the stakeholders. When they come in, they may voice something that we're not aware of. I often say, why doesn't a barber cut his own hair? He can't see the back. So if you have the eyes and ears of the community and they live on a street that you're not aware of, they can tell you something that you weren't aware of, and that becomes new information. And new information should be treated as such in your judgment, right? So I think it's a very live process and iterative based on what new information you get in real time. So
I like that. I like the idea of real time. I was thinking about just going back to theater versus improv, not versus, but I think when you're doing theater, because it's scripted, someone else wrote it for you, and you as a collective you're taking that and you're working on it. So there's collaboration there in general, and you do rely on each other to do you got to do your job, I'll do my job. Whereas improv happens in real time.
Yeah.
So it's like sink or swim when you're on stage with people. Like someone may forget their lines in a scripted show, but you do always have that to fall back on. Mm-hmm. In an improv show, you have to listen to one another. You have to be open to what somebody's saying, or because it helps you and it helps them. So it's kind of what you're saying in the same way, that you have to remain open, and I think that is what allows it to carry off the stage. You think about a friendship, like there are friendships that you have old friendships
right.
But sometimes those friendships are based solely on memories. Whereas, and that's kind of the same way with scripted stuff. Like, oh, remember when we did that show together? Whereas improv is kind of always happening. It's always, like in real time, in real life, it's always happening. So there's like this shared experience that's not just in the past. It's always happening, present and future.
And one thing with improv is it provides an immediate response. If something hits, man, you know it right away. Mm-hmm. But also there's sometimes more than not where it's a dud. You're sitting out, you lay something out there and it falls flat. Talk about that. How do you teach people? Somebody comes in and be like, "Oh, I suck. I'm done." How do you keep them from walking away?
Well, can I respond? Like
the person, the improviser?
Yeah.
Not the audience, right? Like,
well, if the audience leaves, please come back.
Yeah. I wanted to quote Rachel Dratch. I saw her get interviewed at Second City, and she said, when she did improv at I.O. and that, she said about 10% of the improv they didn't land. It was like a dud. 80% was solid improv, made the audience laugh. And then 10% was gold. Sometimes you have a show where everything clicks. Ken knows what I'm talking about. But think about that. 80 plus 10 is a 90% success rate. So if you have 10 bits, one may not land because the suggestion may have been a little bit kind of off kilter, and you try to do your best with yes-anding it, and sometimes things just don't work. You're making it up on the spot. But if you're making something up on the spot, and as a team, you win or lose as a team, you have a 90% success rate. Those are pretty good odds.
Yeah.
I would add to that there are two things in improv. There's the subject of what's happening, but then there's also the people. And I really believe that what people respond to in anything on stage is not necessarily the subject matter. I think people respond to the people. So if they see that even if you're bombing, that you're like...
Why is he looking at me when he says that?
Like, even if you're bombing, Garrett, let me walk you through it. No, but even if you're bombing on stage, if they see that you are still like joyful and playful, it hardly matters. That's what they're responding to, is your feelings. And yes, they're responding to the joke or whatever or the situation that you're saying. But I just think that there is nothing, even that 10% is salvageable by being present and happy.
And I'm going to add to that as well, where it's a team sport. So whether you're on stage during a bit, or if you're hosting the bit, you come up, you introduce the rules of the game, you take the suggestion, and then you let the players have at it. And I always say this, that I want people on my team that play well without the ball in their hands. Like, this is a basketball analogy. Are you clearing it out for your teammates to get an easy layup? Are you setting screens for your teammates when you don't have the ball in your hand? I've worked with performers in the past where if they're not in a bit, they don't care and they won't set you up for success. And I don't like working with them, and that's why one of the reasons I was like, I'm going to start working with people I want to work with. And so you may think, just because you personally didn't get a laugh, in bits, sometimes you're the Bud Abbott and sometimes you're the Lou Costello. And Bud Abbott is the setup guy to Lou getting the big jokes. So you're vital to a team. Tony Kukoc has to pass the ball to Jordan for Jordan to score, right? So another basketball analogy.
I was going to say, right back to basketball.
But
you like basketball?
Well, not anymore. That's why they're all 90s references.
Right.
But it is a team sport, and I think Ken's right. Like if you're playing consistently, and you commit to the bit, you commit to the characters in every bit you may not get those huge laughs, but you're a vital part of the team whether you realize it or not, because you can contribute in so many other ways. And I will tell you, like, you'll have shows where for whatever reason everything you do is gold, it works, it clicks, and then some nights it doesn't. And some nights you'll think, oh, it didn't work, and then your teammate's like, you were awesome, and you're like, was I? So I think it's, you also come in with what's going on in your head at that time. So it can kind of color it a little bit.
With all the improv nights Curtain Call's had, or the shows and classes and that, any examples of maybe people you've seen just transform, like somebody like me, and not necessarily me, but somebody that sat in the audience nervous to do it, but you've seen them get up and like...
Well, I'm going to mention a name because I'm so proud of this person. And her name is Megan Kavanaugh. Hey, Megan, she's probably watching. She came to my Comedy Gladiator show at the Tinley Park Performing Arts Center literally last April. And she signed up for classes in fall of last year, and she's still a student. They have an advanced 2.0 class finishing up. But beginning this January, she just kind of went up on this huge trajectory. She was always very solid, but her enthusiasm, something with the new year, I don't know if it's something in the water, but her team competed in the Gladiator show we had last month, and they won. And she said, my first show was watching Comedy Gladiators. And there was like a lag time before she joined classes. And I mean, to think, less than a year later, she's only done, well, a year later from the show, but she's only done improv for 7 months. Her and her squad, which included Chris Reed, who I met at Curtain Call Theater doing Ken's Jams. And Chris is another one who was just so formidable on the stage in such a short amount of time. And I tell my class or students of my class to come to these Curtain Call Theater Jams because, one, I trust Ken. Ken's a great instructor. But two, he does make it a safe space where you can come up and get some of that precious stage time. And they do. So I thank Ken for that. And but to see that growth really quickly, and I mentioned 2 people now, but I love it. And it was within then, but it's nice to have like teachers. Ken has taught long form here, and Chris is one of his students, and it shows. I mean, it just, everything builds.
I would, poor Chris. I would actually, no, I would cite her as a perfect example of it because she came, I think she's been to every improv.
Yeah, I think so.
And because I have pictures where there'd be people on stage I didn't know, but she's there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she came up for the first one, but like she was hesitant and at first, very, very much at first. But she just got into it and she was just always willing.
Yeah.
Always willing to get up and just like try it and like listen and have a good time. And she is just, and then between taking Garrett's classes and coming and doing that, just like getting experience on stage, she is formidable.
She's formidable.
She's wonderful.
And I will say this, like, so Ken's first long form jam he had here, they had the first jam was the show of his first long form class. I remember thinking Chris was the MVP, and she's somebody that's, if you've been on stage with Chris, and Israel has, Ken and I have, she's very easy to work with as a partner, but she makes really strong choices that seems like subtle, but they're like crowd pleasing, and I think she's one of these people that when the stage lights are on, she shines the brightest, and so she's another person like very formidable.
And the idea, with everybody we're mentioning and improv, and you talk about it with kids, but it really does increase, confidence, and that confidence you build by walking out on stage and by interacting with somebody with nothing planned. I really think that carries off stage into people's personal lives, and I think, that's the thought is how it doesn't. We have fun together, we do that, but how does it really affect us, carrying through in our everyday lives,
I think it helps to reduce anxiety in people. I mean, just the idea that if you are, and I use the word brave very specifically, if you are brave enough to come up and do that, because as we know, bravery is not the absence of fear, but it's the ability to go forward in spite of it, that is easily transferable to life. And so we teach ourselves every day how to react to things. And when you do improv, you kind of have no choice. If you come up here, if you go up and do it, that's the way you have to live a little bit. You are brave for doing that. And when you feel that bravery and you see that you can do things in spite of fear, I absolutely think that carries off into everyday life. Like I can have this conversation with a person, or I can take on this task, whatever it may be, that may have been daunting before, but I know that it's mostly the fear that makes it daunting, not the task itself.
And improv teaches you can fall on your face, and it's okay. You can try
it is
again.
okay.
You can do it again.
World keeps on spinning.
Yeah.
I will say this. I agree with Ken on the fear aspect. So I started a club, Yes and Toastmasters, about 2018 with one of my Second City mates and another guy from Toastmasters. Toastmasters is just a gymnasium for public speaking. And we always say to make you a socially fearless public speaker. Because what happens when your note cards fall down or get rained on and you can't read them, or your projector doesn't work? What do? Do you just go in the corner and cry, or do you soldier ahead? So it is being brave and overcoming that fear and anxiety that you might have. One of our co-students, I guess, Judy Czechanski, we just had a graduation show, and her daughter said, "Oh, I can't believe my mom did this. This is so outside her wheelhouse." And every time Judy comes up on the stage, I'm like, she has great stage presence. She seems so calm, cool, and collect up here. And she was like, "Yeah, no, it is out of my wheelhouse, but you would never know it," right? So she's overcoming that fear. A secondary thing that has helped me in my life is I'm more flexible. I'm a professional engineer by day, and I'm now one of the older engineers, and we have the new generation of engineers, and they think differently, and they speak differently, and they communicate via text versus via face, and I've become more flexible in how I communicate with them, however, also to their ideas. If I'm so stuck in the way of doing it this way, and they have an idea, as long as it gets me to the end result, I'm pretty flexible. Okay, I'll listen. So I think active listening and yes-anding by just listening at first before you know it, right? Or yes, but it, which is a no with a smile on it. So.
And it's funny because I want to make sure that it's a clear delineation between not taking things seriously versus taking yourself seriously. Because there are things in the world that should be taken seriously. But I think that not taking yourself seriously, that if you drop your note cards, that really stuck out to me. You drop your note cards and it's just if you are so I'm a serious, you're like, oh God, that's it, it's over. Whereas you could just be like, Butterfingers. Because it happens, you're a human. All those people who are listening to you are human. So not taking yourself seriously. I said this, I don't know if I said this to our class or I might have said it to the cast of All in the Timing. Something about adults being silly has always been a comfort to me. It just, even as a kid, when my dad would make my mom just laugh, and they would both start acting like dopes, kind of silly. It wasn't that I was laughing at it. It was more like the world's okay, everything's fine. So in that, and I want to be clear, I do take things seriously, but there's just something about laughter and about silliness in adults that makes me feel like everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay.
This coming week, actually, all around Illinois, there's going to be new people sworn into office. We have a new mayor and trustees in Mokena here. So talk about, and maybe I'll use this as a little civics lesson here. How can these officials... Who did you... No.
Well, neither of us live in Mokena, so it's fine.
How can our elected officials use the ideas of of yes and active listening that to be better elected officials?
I'd say
That's a great question.
keep an open mind, right? Like, I'm an engineer, so at the base of my identity is that 2 + 2 = 4, no matter who says it. So somebody you agree with, let's say politically, says 2 + 2 = 4, they're right. And if somebody you agree with politically says 2 + 2 = 4, or that you don't agree with politically says 2 + 2 = 4, they're right too. So there should be some universal truths that you can't accept no matter who says it. You see this all the time with sports where if you're a Bears fan, anything the Packers do is going to be thumbs down. But sometimes you do have to say, okay, that was a nice pass, right?
That was a football metaphor.
Yeah, that was another sports metaphor. But like, keep an open mind, because improv is a lot about collaboration and yes-anding. But yes-anding doesn't mean you always, whatever they say, you're going to agree with. But you keep an open mind to see what sticks on the wall. Keep an open mind, this idea. And maybe some stuff falls down, but you might consider something you never considered before. We're not all knowing. And I think going back to that, what I said before about the barber and cutting your hair, you don't always see every angle. And so sometimes we do have natural blind spots, or we may be so close to an issue, we need to step back so we can kind of read the sign, right? If we're so close, it obscures it. So I keep an open mind. Improv, you come in with an open slate and be receptive to the people you work with.
I agree with that. I think that I'm not going to get too much on a soapbox here, but I think that government, ironically, is actually, supposed to be about people and not about a person. And so I think the best leaders on any level of government are the ones that, it's not just that they are concerned about their people or their constituents, it's that they genuinely realize that they are one of, right? That they are still a person. Yes, they are at a stature, they have a job to do, but it's kind of goes back to the taking yourself too seriously. Like, remember that, yes, this is you, you're the mayor, you're the trustee, but you're also a human, just like the rest of these people. This person, an issue that comes up is an issue that could easily affect you. Maybe it doesn't, but it could easily affect you. So just remembering that you are also a person, and you are in this world, and especially local government is great, because you walk down the street as the mayor of a town, like you don't have a motorcade or anything like that. You are more among the people than you would be if you were like the president of the United States. That you can't walk around unattended. But like, that makes it, like, the former mayor of Mokena comes to all the shows here, front and center. Front and center is at our improv nights and stuff like that, and that's the way it should be.
Right.
That's the way it should in general. Like, the mayor should eat at the restaurants in his town, should know people. And that is what community is, and that is what government is, especially at local level. And I will step down from my soapbox.
I would say this too, and to add to the community too, is like, they have roots in the community on any side, right? And they have kids that go to the same high schools or the same grammar schools. They're part of a community. And that's the thing, where some people's vision of what they want for the community may differ by where they live too, like in that community. And so those are disagreements, but to see, mayors walk down the street and you're like, I like this guy. He's a good guy. I've seen what he does in the community on a granular level, at the grassroots, or a trustee or that, and you know them as a person. You see that their intent is good, and so you can get behind that. So I think, as Ken mentioned, not just putting people up on pedestal, but seeing them as like a human being and a person that lives, breathes, and does things in your community for a positive, intent. Right. And
it's a shared experience.
A shared experience, and people's views for the community may be different, but I think, as Paul McCartney said it best, we can work it out. And then 2 years later, the Beatles disbanded. But
that's a music metaphor.
But with that said, I do want to say, what could the trustees and mayors and that do to become better politicians? Well, that's obvious. Take me and Ken's improv classes. You will grow in ways you never thought you could grow.
I'll always be closing. Garrett's middle name.
And drink Duncan.
So when we talk about the theater and a local, you guys are right on downtown Front Street here. Where does your cast come from? Are you drawing all Mokena people? Do you get, and the audience too? Like, how do you see it?
It is interesting when in this world of scripted theater, it is a little bit, to use your basketball metaphor. There's like kind of home teams. Like people find their sort of home theater. Doesn't mean that they won't go and play other places or audition other places, but there's like the place where it's like, this is where I usually do things. I like that idea, but I also love the idea of going out and doing that. And there are people who do. So it really depends on the show. Like we as a board, when we come up with our season, we think of a lot of things. We think of, okay, we want to have a comedy. We think about it at that level, but then we also say, we want to have a show that has a bigger cast. We want to have a show that has a smaller cast. And we want to have things that will attract people, whether it's the name of the show, or we want to have something that's like, people are like, ooh, that's a challenging thing to do. So you have to think about all of that, and that is what draws people in. That being said, I think mostly it's South Suburban. I don't think we have a lot of people coming from like, the north side of Chicago being like, I want to make that trip every day. But and when we did the show All in the Timing, which is kind of a different show in that we added it. It's not part of our regular. We usually do 4 main stage shows a year with adults, and we've always wanted to do this one. Couldn't figure out where to put it in, and we kind of squeezed it in there. But because of that, it was different in that it was a precast show that we invited people as opposed to audition them because we just didn't have the time to do a whole audition. And if we didn't get the people, anyway, so we asked people to do it. But I purposely, when I was asking people, were looking for people, that I wanted to work with, but also from different places. Some people, it was their first show. They had done shows at Curtain Call, but hadn't in many years. And this was their first time back. So just doing that is kind of like the improv nights. It brings people back, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a viable option. Like when I'm looking to audition, and the actors in community theater do, they have their lists of all what's coming up and what auditions are coming up, and I want them to say, oh yeah, Curtain Call would be a good place to do it because you want good actors to come out for shows and audition.
And do you think for your classes you saw the same? I know we had somebody from Indiana that came out for your. But otherwise, you think it's mostly pretty regional or locally here? I
think yeah. Northwest Indiana is probably the farthest east. We don't get a lot of Ohio people coming. but Northwest Indiana.
And how about audiences? Do you guys have an idea of? Do you get people drawn from other areas or?
Occasionally. It was funny what show was it? Oh, Calendar Girls, the last show we did. I was here watching it, and I was sitting next to a guy who, he does all kinds of theater in Payless. And I recognized him. I was like, well, you just did a show in Payless I saw. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, wow, that's great. And he's like, yeah, it's my first time here. I'm like, oh, cool. And he's like, and I live right around the corner.
Wow. Oh my gosh!
Wow,
that simulated nudity really it offered a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Again, we're like, we need a comedy, we need nudity, we need a drama.
Well, Garrett, how about you? You do your shows, Orland and Tinley. Do you see large draws from those communities?
I would like to know because you get a hell of an audience out there.
So to quote Dave Perner of Soul Asylum.
Another music. This guy.
Nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd, okay? And you can be like Kevin Costner in his Field of Dreams and say, if you build it, they will come. But that's not necessarily true. You have to be like Moses and lead the people to the promised land. So it is about advertising, and getting the word out. It's weird because we've gone to Aurora, sold out the Bit Theater a few years back when we did that. I've worked with Ken here, and DeLorean sold out this theater for an improv jam show. I like to say I'm a rainmaker, but the truth is, I think people see a show, they tell their friends, they come back, and they want to be part of it. We just had 2 shows that were full houses at Tinley Park Performing Arts Center, and one of the shows Israel was in, Comedy Gladiators. And what I loved about that show was it was like an all fresh face crowd. There were some people I knew, but it was a lot of the people that the players brought in. And this last graduation show, again, wall-to-wall people, and I recognized maybe 5 people in the crowd. And I think I asked somebody, well, this was for the Gladiator show. I asked, how did you hear about the show? They were coming in at the tail, and I said, who do you know in the cast? They said, nobody. I said, oh, okay. But I had to go on and start the show. But I wish I could say it's, there's a formula. I've just been fortunate. I pray a lot. But what I really think is the secret sauce is having good people who are consistent performers. I've worked with Ken. Ken was in our Christmas show with Madison, who I met through Curtain Call Theater. And those rehearsals, I had so much fun just collaborating at a table like this, spitballing ideas. And what I love of having like expert improvisers to work with is we need a button for this. We can a lot of times rely on Madison or Mike McCauley, and we can come up with some ideas, improv to sketch, and then have something that's fully baked instead of half baked by the end. But I just think it's if you put on consistent shows, and I'd say this is Curtain Call Theater's greatest success. Every time we come here, we want to come back because Ken is not wrong. They get great actors. There's a lot of great actors in the community, and I saw some fresh faces when he directed All in the Timing, and they were phenomenal. So there's all this talent here, and I think that's probably part of the secret sauce, though, is having that level of consistency that draws good performers, having good shows, the people who see it talk to their friends, and they want to come back. And I had a blast at those shows as well. So
I want to compliment Garrett a little bit because I have said this to many people. I think part of the reason, and he won't because he is a humble person. I really do mean this. I think part of the reason that his shows, to take nothing away from the performers, but part of the reason that they do so well and they attract a crowd is because of him. Because you are, in addition to being a good improviser and a good guy, you're also very supportive of those people. So it's like once you're a friend of Garrett's, like he's your friend for life, and he will come out and he will see you in something. He comes here.
You can't shake the guy. I know.
I know.
He wasn't even supposed to be here today.
It was just like, Ken, you want to do a podcast? And Garrett's like, hey, I'm here. No. But it's true. He came to see a show here, and then he just even when I'm not in the show.
I know he was like an usher. I was like, great job, Ken.
But like that is it, and that works. That works for people because it's genuine. I don't think
I'm
it's
authentic.
fake.
Like I wish I didn't care, but I care.
He cares about all of it, and that people like that, and people speak very highly of you. But also, I think that means that they want to, return that favor. Again, it's community. Yeah, it's community.
So there's some people that you're just never going to get on stage, right? Like, I mean, my wife would. As much as I try, I don't think she's ever going to come up on stage. So how
get her.
How can people? All right. How can people like that experience or be involved? Maybe partly with improv, with a curtain call, but as well in improv. How can you do that if you're not willing to get up on stage?
Well, I think you start small, right? So stage in front of people can seem very daunting, but I think in a room with a handful of people playing games and then just getting exposed to sharing laughs, there's something that people want to come back to. I know when I was first exposed at Second City, I couldn't wait till the next class. And so I wanted to replicate that environment where people are comfortable, it's a safe space, we share laughs. Sometimes our face hurts so much or we have tears from laughing, and you want to come back and experience that again. And I think you start small, and once you get a taste, like my mom said when she was a kid, she never liked pizza, but she hadn't tried it. And then one time at a friend's party, the mom said, "No, you'll like this," and she took it, and now she eats pizza, not too much now.
I like that. I don't like pizza. You ever had it? No.
Yeah. So you don't know until you've tried it, and try it in a small dose, in a safe space where your anxiety is a little bit less, and see where it takes you. Sure.
It's funny because I think sometimes, whether it's in front of an audience or in a class, I think it's almost, for some people, more frightening to sign up for a class. Because then like I said before, oh boy, I paid for this. I paid money.
You can't observe.
Right, I am going to be expected to participate. That's why with the improv nights, I go out of my way to make sure people know that, yes, they pay to come see it, and they will be entertained by what happens, but they do not have to do it. So maybe it's a little bit reverse psychology.
Yeah,
And
it works.
As they see it, though, and become more comfortable, you'll see the same people coming back again and again, and you'll see them like doing this. Like they want to get up there. And then sometimes, after like the fourth or fifth time, they will. They will. And maybe they never do it again. But they did it that one time. They tried the pizza.
Yeah.
And now they know. I like pizza or I don't like pizza. But they'll still come back to watch it. And So how do you get people up there? I think you make it as safe and comfortable a space as possible, whether it's in a classroom setting or in a jam or performance-like setting. If you make it comfortable and you make it, I keep using the word demystify, but to demystify it, and you can do it. I believe anybody can do it.
I would say, Ken, your environment here for those jams is exactly that. You get so many new faces coming up on stage trying stuff. And I tell my class right away, I share when shows are, and I'm like, here's a jam, get on stage, Ken's great, it's a safe space, you'll be comfortable. And it gives, once you are on there, it does demystify it. Because I want them to I've been on stage before, I was at Curtain Call before they have like a graduation show, whether it's in the classroom or whatnot. But
And Ken, do you guys see, because I know you have a lot of volunteers that go in here, do you ever see that where maybe somebody's like, I just want to come build a set, and then maybe they end up trying out for a play? Or
I mean, my father-in-law, he came in, he retired, and he came in to help build sets. And then I think it was last summer for You Can't Take It With You. They needed the two government agents who raid the house.
Yeah.
It's like one scene or whatever, and they had a hard time casting it because it was like 2 lines. And it was like, well, I'll be the G-man. So they asked him, and he did it. And then he came out and actually auditioned for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And so he did it. And so that's a perfect example.
Very cool.
So sometimes it happens. Sometimes people are just like, I like being involved with theater. Conversely, we have a guy who is in All in the Timing, who might actually hold a record, by the way. Anthony. He has been in 5 shows in a row here. That might be a record.
Whoa.
He did You Can't Take It With You, his first show back after 20 years of not being on stage.
oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Then he did Cuckoo's Nest. Then he did The Christmas Show. Then he did Calendar Girls, and he was in All in the Timing. So he's taking a break now. But
well deserved.
right, but he told the director, Jamie Kennedy, of Boeing.
Which calendar girl was he? No.
The calendar guy.
The only one Garrett didn't memorize.
The only one who didn't appear in the calendar.
He was Mr. November. No.
He told the director of Boeing, he said, when is your set build? And she's like, May 10th. And he's like, I'm happy to come and help. And he'll come here and he's helping the Boy Scouts that are doing that. He's coming to help them next week. It's just like, that's community.
Yeah.
That's community. And I love it.
So say somebody's watching at home, they've never participated in an improv class or come to a jam. What is maybe like a little sample improv practice people can do alone or with somebody else to kind of start to get their gears moving?
Well, I will say this first. Typically,
bam.
typically the type of person that I think is a great improviser to begin with, or has the potential, is the introverts. And so one of my students, Heather Slack, first day of class, she said, well, I'm an introvert. And I said, you're in the right place. I know one of the exercises I did early on at Second City was they paired people up, and you could tell some people would totally always bulldoze and lead scenes. And then the teacher would say, well, make sure the other person then leads the next time around. But there are different personalities, extroverts and introverts. I'm an extrovert, but I've worked with a lot of people on my improv casts have been introverts, and they tend to just come alive on stage. It's always the quiet ones, right? It's always the quiet ones. But sometimes they are more reticent to come to a class for whatever reason. But I think once they start stepping their toe in, they kind of get excited for that.
In one of the things, Ken, you would do in class is it was like an ABC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
So maybe
I was gonna
something
say
like
that.
that.
I don't think I invented it, but I think that improvisers, one of my favorite things about any good improviser is their ability to be like a secret storyteller, you know? And that was Del Close who said that an improviser's job is to lead an interesting life and then tell people about it. The easiest thing in the world is to draw from your own life. Right? No one knows if it's true or not when you're saying it, but it's easy for you could take it and run it through whatever character you're playing, but it could still be your story. So one exercise that I just came up with for myself, and then I told everybody about it, was, and I use this example in class, like it's ABC story. So you start with your A, something that you literally can see. So I was driving one day in traffic and I looked up and I saw like a Target billboard, like for the store Target. And I was like, okay, Target. That was my A. What does Target make me think of? And I said, bullseye, right? That was my B. What does bullseye make me think of? And then I said, well, archery. And that was my C. And then I was like, what is a story from my own life that archery makes me think of? And it can be anything. And it can change all the time. Like what I told you might be completely different. But right now, when I think of archery, I think of junior high when they were teaching us archery and we're holding these bows and the gym teacher was on the mic being like, okay, on 1, you're going to aim. On 2, you're going to pull back. And then on 3, you're going to let it go. So he's like, 1, everybody aims. 2, everybody pulls back. And then he walked around checking people's form, and everybody's arm was shaking. And then someone let go and like nearly hit him by accident, like because they were just like my arm literally couldn't hold it, and he was like, "Okay, I didn't say 3." Anyway, so like that's a pretty close example, but sometimes if you play that game, the A, B. So I went from a Target billboard to the story in junior high of archery. That's a pretty close, thing, but you can do it, and you can just do it by yourself, and that's the way I believe everybody's brain does work. Your brain is always seeking connections. It's always looking for metaphors, be they sports or music, or they're always looking for that. That's what, like similes and metaphors. You're trying to figure out what. Okay, do I have time to tell one more story?
Absolutely,
one more fun story. This is a long time ago. I took my son to. For the Cub Scouts, we went to the police station, and they had the officer, and she had the dog, the canine, and like all the kids were asking questions, about the dog, and the officer was like, "Does anybody know, what are some of the differences between a regular police officer and a dog?" Right? It's like, okay, other than the obvious. And one kid was just like, "Oh, they can smell really well, or they can smell better than me." And the officer was like, "Yeah, but this is the way, like, basically the difference between a human nose and a dog's nose is not necessarily that they can smell better, it's the way they smell." So the example was if you walked into a house where somebody was cooking, we'll say pizza in the oven, you'd walk in and you'd be like, "Ooh, smells like pizza," But if a dog came in and a dog could talk, the dog would be like, "I smell cheese, I smell like dough, I smell sausage, I smell tomato." He would smell each individual thing. Whereas we as humans have a shorthand. We did all of that in our head, but went to, that equals pizza. And that's, to me, the way the brain works. And with improv, like, I think that is how it works. You see all of these things, and you're just constantly merging them together. Sometimes you just get like a lump of dough, that's nothing. But other times you're like, I've created a new thing.
Yeah, you build it brick by brick. I will say, through the game you mentioned about what could you play, One is, I always give this out in like the workshops, 5 things, right? 5 things, and you get a category like, it could be a real category, like name 5 fruits, and Ken would name 5 fruits, or name 5, it could be something not real, name 5 children's storybooks that were never made, and Ken could list that out. But you can play that at home by yourself while you're driving, as you see something you pass, like maybe a Target, 5 things in Target. But I have friends that play it with their daughters, with their spouses on road trips, and their whole families on road trips. But the reason I like that game is it's an idea generator. Just like Ken was saying, the A to the B to the C. You start going and connecting dots. But on all these line games are games where the entire cast plays on the back part of the stage and they come forward. A lot of them are pun-based, but if you play, one of my tools I give them, my students is play 5 things in your head. If you get, rabbit, think of like 5 words, and then reverse engineer one of those words if it has a double meaning for puns. Like, 185, if you got nurses, okay, blood, shots. Oh, okay, 185 nurses go to a bar. The bartender says, we don't serve your kind here. And the nurses say, oh, we just wanted some shots, right? Like, so then you play that game and use it as a tool, but you can kind of sharpen the axe, so to speak, by yourself or whatnot. And again, like, whether you're introverted or extroverted, it all plays the same.
Well, Ken, Curtain Call's been on Front Street now for 9 years, like you said.
Yep.
So talk about how Curtain Call has embraced being part of Mokena since coming here, and how you feel the community has hugged back.
Ooh, I like that, hugged back. Well, I also just said many times in this podcast that there are people who don't even know that we're here. I think the community that does come to the shows and stuff like that, they come for the reason that Garrett said, that they maybe came to see someone they knew in a show, and then they were like, wow, that was really, really good. What else have you got? And then they start coming like that. So how they embrace us or how they hug us, I think, is by coming to the shows and being supportive. There are people who come here that don't know anyone, but they go up to the actors after the show and they're like, you were wonderful, we've seen you before. And it's almost like you become a family,
right,
in that way. One of our students that you mentioned already, Judy Czechanski, she's been involved with Curtain Call for a long time. Her daughter did the summer camps, and but and her mom. She brings her mom to the improv nights, and we all love Sharon. She's great. But she wrote this wonderful note that is still hanging up in the office about how. Thank you for giving her granddaughter a home and for being a wonderful thing in the community that a place you could go. A little bit like Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows your name.
Knows your name.
Yeah.
And that's, if we can be that, and if that's the way people feel about us, then mission accomplished. That's great. I would just keep cultivating that experience for people. So I think, taking Sharon's note as a microcosm, I think that is how they embrace us, is because they feel welcome.
And I, see you guys represented down at the Village Hall. A lot of, you guys come and share when the thing's coming up, and with hopefully, Mokena's Front Street on the rise. You have a lot of construction going on next door. That's going to only boost you guys as well, and. It's great to have, this theater sitting here on Front Street leading the charge of...
Yes, the people at the dock, please. The people at the dock, just stay open.
Yes.
Stay open a little bit. We'll give you a list of when our shows are, and then just stay open when the shows are over, and I promise you will get floods of people coming
100%.
over for some food and drink
100%.
afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, I want to wrap up, but Garrett, start talking a little bit about where people can see you, what shows you have on, your classes going on.
Thanks, Israel. Yes, coming into the spring, summer here, we have actually a Star Wars show called May the 4th Be With You on Sunday, May the 4th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Tinley Park Performing Arts Center. It's sketch and Improv. You'll love it, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. I also have, this is more exclusive to people who are Toastmasters. Israel and some other Toastmasters that are part of Main Stage Improv will be performing in Bloomington, Normal, for the TLI, the big district conference there. If you're a Toastmaster, just check us out on the District 54 website. And then finally, I have an advanced 2.0 graduation class Saturday, May 24th. Yes, it's the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, but it's going to be a great show, 8 to 10 p.m. Come on out. So those are the shows I have in May, and then we have a summer show in June. Israel's part of that, a sketch show called Grills Just Want to Have Fun, sketch and improv show. So.
And you want to share your website?
Oh yeah,
You love puns.
I do love puns, and it's all Garrett Gray. It's no AI. It's all the G-Man. But my website is www.mainstageimprov.com. And I do have courses coming up in the fall. I'm taking a break for the summer, but reach out if you're interested, and I'll get you that information. I'll be teaching at the Tinley Park Performing Arts Center and for the Village at Orland Park starting in September.
And don't you have a new YouTube channel out there with some of your performances on it?
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
And that link is www.
I think just search for Main Stage Improv on YouTube.
Okay, that
That'll
should
get you
work.
there.
I can't remember the name. Israel helps.
I'll share the link right
Wow,
there.
That was a perfect shill. Well planned. And like, what is it? I don't know.
Oh, yes. I see why you get so many people to your shows, Garrett.
They don't watch YouTube, no, but we do have the shows up on YouTube. Thanks to Israel.
Before, Ken, I would like just like a 30-minute talk about Toastmasters.
30 seconds?
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Sorry. Another 30. No.
I'm gonna need some more water. No.
Talk about Toastmasters and how, again, real quick, how great that is for, people and public speaking and improvers.
Toastmasters is an international organization. It's a gymnasium for public speaking. Go on the Toastmasters international.com website, put in your zip code, and you'll find a club near you. The club's staples are that they're supportive. They want you to succeed. And in life, you need to be able to speak, to communicate your ideas effectively in work, at home, at school, wherever you exist. And so it's a good investment in yourself. But the thing is, the people I've met there, I'm still at Toastmasters. I'm still at Toastmasters, not because I'm a slow learner, but it's because I mentor a lot of people. And the relationships I built with people, they're long-lasting friends. And I will say this, I'm going to do one more plug for the Village at Orland Park. I am teaching this summer a 5-week course with my wife, Amanda Gray. She's a lawyer, and it's called Speak Like a Champion Today. This is going to take a lot of these speaking techniques, and it'll be like taking a drink out of a fire hydrant. It's so intensive, but good intensive. After a month, you'll be well healed on how to speak to all audiences.
Yeah, that's great.
I was really amazed to see how much Toastmasters and improv tie in together. So, Ken, tell us about what you're doing, what Curtain Call's doing, how we can get tickets.
Let me go through it. You'll be happy to know every time you see me, I'm always talking about our summer program, the kids show. That is filled. We filled it. It's filled up, so I don't have to talk about it. Except that it's The Wizard of Oz, and they're doing that in July. But coming up in short order, we are accepting video submissions as auditions for our summer stock production. That's for ages 16 to 23, which is it's just a funny range.
Yeah.
The 23 thing is what always throws me out. But it's summer stock is 16 to 23, and it's here at the theater at the end of July. It's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Good one.
But it's video submissions because a lot of people are still in college, so they can submit an audition. You can find information on our website about it, but I think it's May 12th is the deadline for those submissions. So if you want to be in summer stock, send in a video. Then we, of course, have our next improv night is May 31st. It's the Saturday after Memorial Day weekend. May 31st, and that will be Improv Night 14 here from 7 to 9 p.m. And then very shortly after that, our next Main Stage production, scripted show, Boeing, opens on Friday, June 6th. And surprisingly, one of the Sundays is already sold out of that show. So we'll be doing 2 weekends of it, and if we sell out, we'll probably add a Thursday show the following week. But that is what is coming up.
Awesome.
More information, you can visit our website at CCC Theater. That's theater with an R-E, .com, and all of that info is there for you. So,
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys both for talking to me today. It's been great to be back on the stage here at Curtain Call with you guys, as always. And thank you to Curtain Call for letting us record here. And for encouraging improv and bringing it so actively to the theater here. It's been a lot of fun, and I always enjoy it. So thank you guys again.
of course, thank you for having us.
Yeah.